We already talked about the Dell stuff on Monday, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's POCs out now, which
I
is,
say
I guess,
really.
we could do an update on it. I guess, yeah.
Yeah, that might be good.
Hey, Black Hills is live.
All right.
Cricket, cricket, cricket. Dead air.
Thanks for
Dead air.
tuning in, everyone. We're just gonna stare at you now.
This is the show. Oh, we have a cat.
I was waiting on the cool intro. I didn't
I
know
know,
it was
me
like
too.
official until the cool intro.
Oh, we're not that
We're-
official yet. We're the
Yeah.
let's get the stream going so it doesn't kick us off again.
Why
We're in
doesn't
pre-show
anyone else have
banners.
the names? Like me and Derek have names on ours. Why doesn't anyone else have their names?
I see everyone's names.
I see
I see
everybody's
everyone's
names.
name.
Really? I
Names
see
for
only
everybody.
me and Derek. That's it.
He named
Weird.
everybody.
Must be my side. That's so weird. Yeah, I can send you a screenshot of what I see.
On the YouTube link, everybody's names there.
Cool.
Festus, we're here.
Trust us, we're experts.
No, I wouldn't go that far. Some of us are.
Okay. I'm gonna wait just a couple more minutes, I guess.
Every time I get on the news, I'm like cramming these articles into my mind. I feel like I'm like back in high school prepping for a test like the night before all over again.
Let's see. I'll paste the links we got. I don't know if we're going to talk about everything, but I'll put them in the chat there, the internal chat.
Okay.
I mean, we kind of have to talk about the thing in the news, right?
What? No.
Yes and no. Yes and no.
I thought that the rules were we don't talk about ransomware on the show.
Oh, I didn't know there were rules. That's what I get
We
for only
also-
coming to these every once in a while.
We also
We're
got to
happy to
save
have
stuff
you.
for tomorrow.
Well, what's tomorrow?
The emergency
Yeah.
webcast
Yeah.
system.
Sorry about that.
Oops, my mic moved. All right, you got those links there. I think that's all of them. And of course, any suggestions are welcome. I share this one. No, I don't think I included this one. 23 people watching us get ready.
I feel sorry for those 23 people.
Oh, I did include that one. Oops, that's a double. Oh well.
Those are just a 4.
I do have to say though, because when we first started, it was like 40 something, and we've gone down to 26. Like, viewership is not ideal at the second. Let's see.
All right, I think this is going to be everybody. Any last requests for articles? Or do you have a objection to an article?
I say we talk about them.
All right, let's get it done then. I'm going to hit the big video. Are we ready? You Everybody ready to go?
Nope. Totally not
Nope.
ready. Go ahead.
Perfect. Perfect. It's Talking About News with BHIS. This is Ryan. I'm doing MC again this week. And I've got with me a handful of people that you can now see. And some veterans. We got Mubix back and Derek. And of course, Dale, Noah, and Jeffrey from our rookie crew. We're all here to talk about, I don't know. Did anything happen at all that might be interesting?
I think it's been a pretty quiet week in cybersecurity as far as I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on your
I
definition
think so.
of quiet.
I think, we have this really cool story about the Catch Me If You Can guy may have made up everything that he made a movie about. So
Frank Abagnale.
Yeah,
Frank
Abagnale
Abagnale, yeah. Oh, I'm not sharing that. I got to share that. I got to turn it back on. Here we go. So we'll start off with that. I'm going to bury the lead. And we'll start with this. So if anybody remembers the movie, Catch Me If You Can,
It was a great movie.
Yeah,
it was a great movie. It still is a good movie, but apparently everything in the movie is complete BS.
Are we sure about that? Or is that like just an opine from this person? Like,
Well, the article says, if I remember it correctly, that people who know Frank Abagnale,
Abagnale, yeah.
that guy, said he made it all up. He never did those things that he said he did, and some people did some digging and could not find any real evidence of this stuff. So it's possible that nothing was as it seems.
I mean, I find it hard to believe that a guy who got an entire movie made about him conning his way through a bunch of stuff could be just possibly making it up. That just seems awfully far-fetched.
You would think that they would do some verifying on this story.
Well, it could
But
also
maybe
be
not.
typical Hollywood. They embellished just more than normal.
I mean, it's storytelling. We always take, we being Hollywood, always take the, I forget the phrases.
You stretch the truth.
Yep.
You stretch the
Valid.
truth. Yeah, that's not the phrase that I was trying to think of. It went away in my mind.
okay.
I have a great
So-
memory now.
Artistic liberty, I think that's what you're thinking.
Yes, that's the one.
I mean-
Everything is based on true events, but a lot of it's made up anyway. So I guess it doesn't matter that none of this was
Yeah.
real.
It's still a good movie. It has cool, actors and actresses. It also has really good storytelling. Like the fact that you have Tom Hanks in it just makes it impossibly good automatically. Like there's, I don't know. Like I don't care. Like if he made it all up, I really don't care. He made a lot of money on it. Good for him. Did it hurt anybody? I don't think so.
It's all
Good
a story
point.
anyhow,
Good
and
point.
it's still a good story.
Yeah, there were many facets to that movie that, even if they didn't actually happen, were absolutely plausible and could actually happen, which, just raised the interest about, basically his entire background for that movie was basically driven around SE or social engineering. So basically he brought visual, a lot of visibility to that aspect. And a lot of people started thinking about it because of that movie.
Mm-hmm. Ahead of his time, maybe.
Yeah.
All right. So we're bearing the lead to, of course, everybody's talking about gas prices. And everybody wants to know what's going on with gas prices.
What happened with gas? What's going on?
Yeah, what's up with gas? Well, we being BHIS. Tomorrow we've got a webcast that we're going to talk about this in, I assume, great detail. FBI did just published a statement. Well, this is from yesterday.
Do you guys get
About-
this
very short
podcast out
statement.
same day?
For the podcast, it takes a day or two.
Okay, so you're probably watching the webcast right now then.
The YouTube stuff stays online, so once we
yeah.
start live, it stays there.
Okay.
And that's immediate. But yeah, if you're listening to the podcast, that event may have already happened, and you can go find that on YouTube, more than likely. But
So originally
It's a
on May
thing.
9th, 2021, the FBI was notified of a network disruption in the Colonial Pipeline, right? And you took it away, so now I can't read it.
oh, you're reading off the screen. Okay, there you go.
On May 7th, we were working closely with the company and our government partners, which basically means like we just found out about it. May 10th, the FBI confirms that DarkSide ransomware is responsible for the compromise of the Colonial Pipeline networks. Wait, did they didn't clarify that? The FBI confirms that the DarkSide ransomware is responsible for the compromise of the Colonial Pipeline networks, and we continue to work with the company and our government partners on the investigation. Like,
Isn't ransomware really a symptom of a compromise? Not really a compromise in and of itself.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, it really depends on what regulatory body you're talking about, because I know from an internal perspective, talking to auditors, certain regulatory bodies do consider ransomware an actual breach of the network, while to another, and they don't.
Yeah, no, I get that. What I'm saying is to drop the ransomware, you would actually have to compromise the network, which really wouldn't be with the ransomware, right? And I'm nitpicking. I get it.
No, don't like totally get you. Yeah.
But I mean, they didn't compromise it with the ransomware. At least, I don't know. Maybe I don't understand how it works, but I'm thinking that there's more to it. There's always more to it, right? But at the end of the day,
I can't use ransomware to hack websites. I can't use ransomware to hack websites. I can't use ransomware.
I hear tracer T is all the rage, man. Yeah. So, does anybody know? I took the weekend off from like all news and things outside of like. It was really nice. And look, this happens. I won't do that again. Sorry, everyone.
Oh, so it's your fault.
Yeah.
So are you DarkSide? Tell me true. Are you DarkSide?
But I took the weekend off, right? So I mean, but yeah, no, I'm not. Actually, you're the second person today who asked me that. That's funny. Maybe I should start worrying. But does anybody know? Is the pipeline back up? Did they fix it yet?
It's not up now. As last I heard, I think it's supposed to be back up by the end of the week, is what they said earlier today.
In progress.
Oh, that does definitely means that gas is not going to get cheaper.
Yeah, not right away.
I believe there's already been gas price increases.
So I haven't looked too far into this. Like, how does ransomware on a system create a pipeline issue? Like, in my head, like there shouldn't bad term in security. In my head, the pipeline itself at least should have lots of manual controls and manual like overrides and all of these things. And like, why would a ransomware attack, and what system would a ransomware attack have to hit to create this kind of outage? I don't understand why that's even a thing.
I mean, I know one aspect they have to contend with is that when you have a pipeline like this, you have to have visibility on the entire pipeline at pretty much any given moment. And if you lose that visibility for, I think, more than 30 seconds, you're not allowed to continue to send material down that pipeline because there could be a breach in the line with a fire. But
I mean, not to disagree, but we had pipelines before we had the internet monitoring pipelines and computers. That
True.
I mean, it happened all before then. So I guess Rob, I think, is getting at is why is this not more of a manual fail-safe kind of thing on something that's critical? Like I heard people on the radio saying today, who obviously didn't know what they were talking about, that all of this should be air gapped, and then it should be a nationwide push to air gap all of the systems. Like, oh Lord, I'm just going to turn the radio down now.
Yep.
Well, that's kind of the the lack of clarity around all the different articles is that some articles say that it was disrupted. Some articles say that it was shut down to prevent disruption or to, just as a precautionary measure. So I don't think it's really clear at this point why it's shut down.
I mean, I can think of a couple of ways. I mean, when you think about pipelines, anything like that, to industrial equipment, you often are obviously going to be aware that there will be SCADA devices that are probably in play. And depending on what type of backend those SCADA devices are pulling into for monitoring purposes, obviously with computerization, we're reducing the amount of people monitoring physically and manually. We're relying heavily on systems. So if you actually had an ingestion of, say, ransomware into the backend and it somehow reached the backend database or the actual home application server where the data lives, you absolutely would lose visibility across the entire pipeline in the blink of an eye.
Sounds like someone doesn't have a really good disaster recovery plan.
I was going to say, that's what you call a bad day.
Hey, very bad day.
At least they don't have to do a fake DR this year.
Do you honestly think that they did a fake one any other year?
Oh, well, probably not. Yeah.
Right? that's one of the first things. So I've gone through like my undergrad now, and I'm working on my graduate degree. And every step of the way, I have had, what is a disaster recovery plan? What does a disaster recovery plan look like? What are the things that are included in a disaster recovery plan? Like, if I'm getting taught this in college online classes, like, there's a good chance that like more prestigious or well, funded colleges probably have, disaster recovery plans as their main thing. Like, why isn't this a standard? And why isn't the auditing body looking for disaster recovery plans being enacted?
I mean, I think it's been more than 10 years since I got my CISSP, but I think anyone who's gotten a CISSP, I don't know, I think half of my questions on the test were about business continuity and disaster recovery. So it's certainly drilled in, from an Infosec, certification standpoint, right? So I think what it is that the people who are still that connection's still not made, right? But then again, I don't know, maybe they had a DR plan and that's one of the ransomware computers. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing, though. I'll go right off what you just said. Business continuity and disaster recovery plan. Those words are used interchangeably often, but they actually don't really mean the same thing. So, I mean, you need to have a business. You're like, from auditing perspectives, I've had auditors come into environments I've been in. Rob touched on this. They're looking for this. Well, yeah, they'll ask for a disaster recovery plan, but the reality of it is, a lot of those auditors have never actually worked in an environment. So how do they actually look at that disaster recovery plan for your environment and even know if it meets all the check boxes that it really should for that environment? It's really hard. I mean, imagine if I dropped you.
So the checkbox is a do you have one?
You have one.
Yeah.
Not is it good?
You have one. Do you have one?
Well, but even if you say that, I've even seen before, and I'm joking, but it's sad, it's true. You ask for the plan and you get handed a plan that's basically just a POAM number. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You have it covered, right? So.
Yep.
The other thing too is that I might get blasted a bit for this, but when it comes down to it, disaster recovery plans are like everything else, where ultimately there's a business decision. And if you're not going to make money off it, if you've got money to spend or limited money to spend and you need to spend it somewhere else, you're not going to spend the time and resources maybe on your disaster recovery plan or on the actual testing of it.
Well, yep.
I don't know, at least until you get to the point where you needed one, and then you'll later come back and be like, oh, we should have really have invested in that.
It's too late.
Yeah, I mean, the same goes with anything for security, right? Like, I didn't have backups until I lost the photos for like my, for a period of my life, right? I started doing religious backups after that happened. Like, I didn't do really good password security until my password was stolen, right? Like, are we going to have to get every company? Man,
hey, Rob, I was almost getting ready to say right before you is, it's all fun and games until there's like a real kinetic event, like a real, a real problem. I don't know if gas goes to $6 a gallon. You think people will start paying attention?
I don't.
No, I don't.
We'll all just start buying Teslas.
There you go.
No. So what my question is how do we simulate the punch in the face to get things rolling on disaster recovery? Because like right now we have the punch in the face for most things cyber related by red teams and pen test teams and consultancies and stuff like that. There isn't a body of work that you can say, okay, we're going to test our disaster recovery, and if it fails, we know where to like fix it. Like no one wants that scenario because that can result in millions of dollars of loss, right? So how do you as an auditor, how do you as a red team, how do you as a pen testing, how do you as a consultancy firm get people on board with testing that to see if your business continuity plan or your disaster recovery plan work?
How do you get them on board?
Yeah.
Well, honestly, if you start to look at things, the pipeline issue, look around at all the hospitals that have been hit by ransomware in the past years, where they've had to turn away patients because their whole back end is completely encrypted.
So refer them to news, like that doesn't always work.
It is kind of sad, but I mean, when I would make the argument internally, I'd be like, do we want to be that company that just did this? And that gets the visibility, but honestly, you have to get buy-in from the business. You have to actually get them to understand just how important it is. And I mean, sometimes it's bad to say it, but sometimes an outage or an actual event is the best way to get buy-in and funding real quick.
Okay, so how, without an outage, without pointing at the news, how do I talk to a business and say, this is what it's for, this is why we need to do it, and here's how we're going to test it? Those traditional methods don't work. I mean, they do work, but it's not effective across the board, right?
If I had the real answer, I could make Black Hills a lot more money, probably.
I mean, one of the things I would say to a business, and this is assuming that I actually am familiar with the business at all. Like, let's just say, I don't know, just pick any hospital. Let's just pick any hospital. If you wanted to talk to a lead of the hospital and say, okay, we really want to help you do better in security, but I do have a couple of questions for you. How would you go about recovering, and how fast could you recover if your entire medical back end was just say deleted? Let's just imagine that it's gone. What would you do as a medical director of this facility?
Nothing's happened yet. Nothing's happened yet. So like, I'm not going to spend money on fictitious things.
Yeah,
that's the answer you're going to get.
I was going to say the most common answer to that is that would never happen.
Yep.
Like most common answer. I've heard that before. I've actually been told.
I've actually heard that too.
It's not going to happen. You can't do that. And then I'll go do the thing, and they're like, "Oh wow."
But why are they thinking that? Are they thinking that because they're under false pretense that the security is up to snuff and that they're covered from those types of things?
You're trying to inject that there's logic in the process. I mean, they're egotistical. They've been middle management all their life. They don't really know. Like, I mean, who knows?
Job security too. Like, people don't want to say bad stuff and say we don't have this handled and possibly lose their job, right?
Yeah, so Ben Webb, that is a really good point. I used to work in the banking industry, and that was at the sword of Damocles, right? Like, you can't mess that up. Like, it'll come down and kill you.
We accept the risk of all things.
For the podcast people who can't see the video, it's Ben is saying, where's the government regulation? Because the banks regularly test the stuff because the OCC won't let them operate if they don't.
Yeah, and I've actually been a part of that kind of audit before, and I remember it not actually being easy, and it wasn't a checkbox exercise at all. So
everyone's kind of saying that we need more regulation around standard business practices for security?
No, I'm not saying that.
That's for politicians to say.
Yes.
I don't know.
Funny. It is funny.
I mean, if we're going to talk about like efforts in like general society, I mean, I'd probably take a step back and get more kids involved in STEM and computer science and actually learning about stuff like this, like much earlier. Not even learning, just interested. I've noticed with my two kids, like it's been hard to try and explain to them that moving forward in life, there will be two types of people who use technology and people who understand technology, and you want to be one of the latter. And I think that's what it takes. I think that like going forward, we just need more people who are capable of understanding and thinking through these kind of complex issues. Because, I can't remember who said it earlier, but someone said earlier that like, well, I mean, with like a pipeline, like, or with a company, like it's a challenge to come in as an auditor who's not real familiar with like the actual business practices. Like one of the hardest things I've found as a pen tester through the years is understanding what the business does and what really matters to try and communicate risk appropriately. It's not an easy thing. I guess that's why everybody doesn't do it.
I agree with you on the technology side as far as using it versus understanding it and understanding why something works the way it does. I've been one of those people, and I think all of us here have been one of those people that love to understand the why to at least some aspect of the technology that we work with. And the friends and family that we deal with, not everybody is that way. They just want the easy answer. But I think, like you said, going into the future, it's going to be harder to get just to the surface of this stuff. You've really got to. It's like learning another language almost. That's really multifaceted, and if you're not fluid in that language, it could bite you.
So let's transition to another aspect of this, which is the attribution. We were talking about this before the actual cast started. The attribution for dark side. So dark side, and I'm just doing the transition. So I know that someone else said that they had attributed it to dark side, and then someone else had said that it wasn't the case. There was some kind of purchasing going on. So if those two people can speak up and talk about that would be awesome, because I think that was a great part of this aspect of this story too.
You're talking about dark side as a service.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's multiple articles out there, and depending on which one you read, you get a different story. So some people were saying that dark side is a group, and other articles are saying dark side is a ransomware as a service platform. So now we're kind of like, which is it? Like, are they a group or not? Because the group is saying, hey, no, we just make the software and we rent it out. But the articles are saying that they're the ones actually doing the attack.
Yeah, I heard this morning on the radio, so it was true, that it was like a Robin Hood scenario. Like Darkseid was stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. And I'm sitting here thinking, wasn't that like the last season of Mr. Robot?
Hey, no spoilers.
I haven't seen that show.
Oh man,
you should watch it.
Too.
But again, has there been like an official like attribution that came out from some kind of channel?
The FBI right there. It says Darkseid's one.
Okay, but Darkseid. But that's what I'm saying is okay. I thought Darkseid was the software, was the ransomware, or so the group and the ransomware are named the same thing. Is that true, or is that like what we were just saying?
I think that's where the confusion lies primarily, is in the fact of like, are they a group or is it a software?
So they're in this update, they're only saying that the Darkseid ransomware, particularly the software that they produce, is the thing responsible for the compromise. So, cool. So ransomware itself is the responsible, it can compromise systems. That's awesome. Where do I get that AI?
That's what I guess NotPetya kind of can, right? I guess I don't know, but I guess in my mind, because I've done work like attribution work in the past, like malware is malware and groups use malware, and I mean I guess you could name the two the same thing, but that doesn't really help kind of clarify it for other people when you're trying to communicate. So I guess that what I'm saying is are there, aside from people just talking about things they don't know, has there been an official, this was Russia, this was China, this was the North Koreans, this was organized crime, anything like that?
I did see an article that said that it was linked, let me back up, that the software was somehow linked to being in Russia, but not necessarily linked to Russia. if that makes sense.
Eastern
So-
Europe is what I saw.
To me, it makes it a much bigger like geopolitical story if it's firmly linked to a country that would have a vested interest in our oil industry taking some kind of hit. That makes it different than what I would traditionally consider to be like ransomware, which I always kind of, in my mind, thought more about organized crime and making money.
I think they're being really careful at this point to not go there yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not cleared to know that. Yeah.
No.
All
do
right.
you think that this is a prelude to war if it is a nation state?
Well, that is going to make 2021 a whole lot worse than 2020.
The other thing too is like, I mean, on that same note, I would venture to say probably not, because now the groups come out and say, hey, we didn't mean to cause damage or cause any harm. So, but on the flip side of that, how do you create ransomware without the intent of causing some kind of harm? So that seems kind of
what is ransomware as a service, by the way? Like, I don't even understand that. Like, how do you have ransomware as like, do they do the installs for you and support it once it's like, so you just sign up and say, and you get a, like, is it like you can download this binary and this binary handles all the transactions and money transfer? Like, what does that even look like?
It kind of, according to some articles I was reading, you actually get like a custom executable specifically designed for your target.
Okay.
Imagine calling tech support for your ransomware because it's not working.
1-800 ransomware.
So if they also are the broker for the money, I'm curious if like the ransomware, if DarkSide's the target themselves, because if I can get onto the ransomware as a service platform, then I can put whatever I want in it, right?
I feel like this is like the scene from the Office Space when they're trying to figure out how to launder money. Like you have a whole bunch of pen testers going, how do you commit crime with a computer? I can't really figure that out.
I'm just saying, like, you're as a criminal, if you have a platform and it's a platform as a service sort of like situation, then you become the target. Like,
I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess you could make money as the middle person there if you're, doing the distribution of said ransomware, right? Like you're basically just farming out the back end.
Well,
I mean, have you ever seen a movie where the middleman actually gets away, like the person transferring the drugs to the crime lord or whatever? Have you ever seen a movie where the person doing the like mule actually gets away? Like that,
Nah, they usually die.
It always ends. Yeah. No.
Those are the interns, aren't they?
What would be really interesting is if you could infect the ransomware company with ransomware and hold them ransom.
That would be classic.
Very
actually.
meta.
All right. Well, I think we've beat this one to a pulp for now.
John will beat it up more tomorrow.
Yeah, there's going to be more. We'll probably have more for next week. And
So Ben Webb was saying,
lost Jeffrey, but he's back. Say it again.
I'm sorry. Ben Webb said no. They only run the C2, and you do the installs. Yeah.
Oh, DarkSide, you're talking about.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't
So
know what that means,
what's next
but
up?
you guys do. Yeah, let's go to the next one. I'm gonna bring up full screen. Here we go. Here's get some exercise in your day with Peloton.
So I actually own a Peloton tread and a Peloton bike. And I did think when I got it, oh, wow, yeah, you could get trapped under that thing. My kids aren't really small anymore, right? But that's not what this story is about. This is adding on to the tread recall, right? And this is that, hey, a fitness app has some kind of insecurity. Who'd have thunk?
Some privacy issues. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about social. It's also all about social partnership and communication and trying to beat the next person in your group or whatever.
Yeah.
So like, it's
So-
really hard to do that right.
Can we
Sorry.
go? Yeah, can we go back up to what parts of? There was one part of the API that they didn't call out because. So basically,
Right there,
what's happened
data
here?
exposed.
Yeah, what's happened here is they had an API that some of the endpoints essentially have what we would consider, it looks like, to be insecure direct object reference, where someone can go grab some data and not necessarily be the authenticated user who is allowed to go get that data, right? So that sounds like what's happening here. So does any of this stuff look out like I would not want them to have it? As Rob said, the vast majority, it looks like, except for that one thing they didn't put out, if you were a part of the Peloton ecosystem, I'm not really sure that I care that you get it. So
You're probably sharing most of that by nature of the.
right. Now, so the question would be
Anyways.
is, okay, if you have to have a Peloton account, okay, so basically the barrier to entry to that is $40 a month, right? And so, okay, now you can get to the same data. I guess I'm not really seeing, like to me, this isn't as bad as like some of the Strava issues that were uncovered a couple of years ago, right? Where you had, people at secret military bases doing, running and tracking their watch or tracking what their
Yeah.
watch. And then, the geolocation data was available at Strava. And so I actually did a talk with Dakota Nelson about it, about something similar. We were scraping Strava data because they essentially had enumeration where you, without authenticating, you could just go and grab data just like this. So Strava had this issue a couple of years ago. Don't know if they still do or not. But we didn't really consider it to be, all you needed was a Strava account to see the data anyway. So it's not like you're getting my password or my credit card number or something, right? So I don't know how serious this really is. Maybe I'm wrong though.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I'm not seeing like catastrophic failure in any and it looks like when I was reading the article that pen test partners are the ones that found it, and they reported it, and it was an inadequate fix, and they're just kind of running with this story as like a way to get them to fix it, like forcing them shoulder full disclosure method, right? So again,
Maybe the real story maybe the real story in this one is not so much that there was an issue, but there was an issue that was known that they, the article says slow response botched fix, right? 2 weeks isn't a crazy amount of time, but surely in 2 weeks they should be able to come up with a fix.
Wait, 2 weeks to fix an API that millions of people are using? Yeah, I don't know. 2 weeks.
Right.
I mean, look, I'm sure I know there are way better developers than I'll ever be, but I don't know. 2 months, maybe 2 weeks. That's a lot.
Also, to push a fix down to the bikes, because the bikes are the ones using the API to read all that information.
It's more complex than just like, oh, let's just change the code. Like, yeah, okay.
Well, maybe we can do that when they bring them all in for the recall.
Yeah. The bikes aren't getting recalled, just the treads.
I do see one item here that it's interesting to me at a minimum. It says if they're in the studio or not. Can you use that data for essentially location tracking?
So from what I remember, I actually have been to the Peloton studio in New York. So if you went and got my data, you'd found that a couple of years ago that both my wife and I were there. I don't know that it would be like ongoing. And again, like compared to the Strava thing where I know your location. Okay, that makes me a little bit more nervous, right? But like the location of my tread and my bike, I'm pretty sure everybody can figure out where I live. It's not a secret, right?
Sure.
So you'd have to go there frequently enough, and let's just say that it's not a cheap membership. So
Also,
I guess my thought is like I want to break into your house, and I can use this application to know, hey, you're at your house, or you're not at your house, or you're somewhere else right now, and I know you're somewhere else right now, and I know when you leave that place, so I know to get out. I mean, that's the only thing that I see as an option.
Yeah, I didn't think that that part of the data was a log, more of a bool. Like, is it true or not currently? Right. So Like I don't think that it's a log that you can access it.
So now
it just
I'm really wishing that I had reverse engineered the API years ago just to see what was there, right? If that's true, then that makes a lot of sense, actually, Rob, because there's definitely a different experience on the end user side from the electronics perspective in studio versus on a home bike. They're different.
yeah. So I still think that the "Are you home or not" kind of works there, but like, man, that's still valid. But like,
I mean, I'm not seeing anything I'd call more than a medium in a pen test report.
it also
Sure,
doesn't
sure.
doesn't tell you if anyone else is home. Like if it's like ADT or simple or not simple. What are the other like home security systems
Door or something.
Ring and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Ring,
If it was them, where it could tell you if anyone was home or not, then I think it would be a bigger deal. But and yeah,
Not
I get your
so
point
much.
though.
All right, I move on to the next one then. I've got something here for Cisco. Anybody know? Anybody familiar with this story?
Software defined WANs. They could they resulted in the command injection, right? Yeah. So the problem with a lot of software defined networking is that there isn't really good authentication around it, and sending in updates to the software defined networking to say reroute traffic or it's essentially responder in a way that most of these newer devices, like Cisco routers and other switches and stuff like that, where they accept software defined networking functionality. And for this one, it's specifically Cisco Hyperflex. And the issue really boils down to is that, a successful exploit could allow the attacker to execute arbitrary commands on the affected devices as the Tomcat 8 user. So in their Hyperflex is actually running on Tomcat, and it's essentially the oldest trick in the book where you can, run new jar files inside of the software, right? All of the software defined networking stuff is really, really bolt on onto existing software and other products. And so like all of the older attacks still come around, and a lot of the times it's Dockerized and super old, right? So yeah, this one was interesting to kind of look at, but it really doesn't have a ton of like specifics to the modification of the software defined networks. It's more along the lines of the management software itself. But again, my original point is like the SD software or SD networks, SDNs, are super insecure too. So I talked around in circles because no one else was talking.
Well,
If
short
anyone
and
wants to
sweet.
send me some SD WAN gear, like I'd be more than happy to start weighing in on conversation.
Oh, if you want to start doing software-defined networking at all, Proxmox has it built into it.
Oh, I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, let's move on to AirTags. Another hot buzz issue. Somebody has already hacked their AirTag.
I'm gonna have to get me some AirTags because we were only talking about this a couple weeks ago.
Why?
Well, just to play with them,
Why?
Just to mess around with them.
I got tiles.
Do the same thing I'm looking at online right now.
I got tiles. I got a bunch of other like tag related things just because, I thought as a consumer, I'm going to use this. It's important. Like that way it's easy to find stuff. Like none of that has ever worked well for me. Like,
but this is Apple.
At best, it was a interesting, like, play like toy for a little while. It never actually helped me find a lost item, even though I have lost items with with
man.
tiles and other things in them.
That's disappointing. I'd always thought about I tend not to lose things, right? But my wife loses everything. And I've wanted to get her something like this for a while. And so I get her one and then I get me one and she can actually use it and I'll try and break it and see what happens, right? But so you're saying they don't work as like an actual product. That's disappointing.
Well, I
mean,
guess
go ahead.
the thing for me is like, because I did the same thing. I mean, I got the tile and I was like, yeah, this seems like a good idea. At the time, it did anyhow. But the problem I always had with the tile was that there is so little buy-in on the network, and it only works if everyone has the application installed. So you could leave your keys anywhere, but if nobody walked by and they didn't have the application on their phone, it wasn't going to do any difference. So the only thing that for this stands out, I'm like, this might actually work better just simply because everyone who has an iPhone is now buying into this network. They're now working on this, and I don't know.
It's
At the same point, though, Apple is
to a certain point.
Where are you going to lose your item that you're thinking that you're going to lose? Where it's not going to be 1, in a lost and found, 2, actually stolen, so you're never going to get it back, or 3, in your house where you can find it yourself.
I bought some AirTags for my house because I am constantly misplacing my keys and taking me 20 minutes to figure out where I put them. So that's one reason why I bought these.
There's this thing
What do you
called
need
a
keys
bowl.
for? You can't go anywhere.
That works in theory.
If you get a
I have
bowl,
hooks.
you put it. There you go.
I don't have a bowl, but I have hooks, but they don't always end up there. And sometimes I leave them in weird places that I would not think that I put them there. So
to an extent, I get what you're saying, Rob. You can like train yourself out of needing them, but
yeah.
No, but seriously, like other than your house, where are you going to lose something that this can help you?
It depends on what you're connecting them to or attaching them to. And, it's going to be a person-to-person
Sure.
thing.
Give me an example where this could happen, and it be attached to something, anything. Pick a thing, other than your significant other,
or your cat or dog, which
right.
I
they're
actually
not
have
really
one,
designed
Rob.
for. But
When
I
I
did buy one for the dog and the cat anyway.
A pet would be an outside pet would be good.
So
Just in case.
when I find the downstairs remote at the restaurant with my AirTag, I'm totally going to let you know about this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, I have a little bit of an example. For a while, I had a tile clipped onto my backpack, which had just various gear in it. And I would drive around from place to place and working on one thing or another. And occasionally, I would just set the bag down and walk away and go to some other site. And then it's like, crap, what site did I leave it at? And I have to track all the way back. In theory, if I could just look on my phone and it'd be like, oh, yeah, you left it at this site. Yeah, you shouldn't leave your stuff lying around. But I now know what site it's at. That's about the only example I can think of off the top of my head, though.
So,
And it can save you some embarrassing phone calls to try to track down
Basically.
which location did you leave your crap at.
Although the other one would be in the spring and fall. If I could put one of those in my jacket so I know where I left my jacket, that would be perfect.
We packed it away in a box somewhere. It's in the attic. I just don't know which one.
So both the,
But the battery
I just
on these
mean
things-
go to the
the
restaurant
battery
like
on these
it's
things
cold
is gonna
in the
go
morning.
dead.
So both the tile and the AirTag, work on this mesh network thing. How long until these things have LTE modems, GPS, and I guess what else do you need? Some power and
They
an
run
IPv6
on a watch
address.
battery.
So
AirTags
Okay.
have a battery life of 1 year as long as its battery usage is low. So if you
Mhm.
don't constantly use it to find it, right? So
If you're not
Yeah.
like me, that loses the keys every 3 days, they might not. The battery
Well,
might
but
not last as long.
You're just
if
going to
you're
be
like that.
replacing it more often then. But
Yeah, but at least they're user replaceable.
are
But
they-
that's besides the point
Why
of
not?
security.
okay. So it's just the standard 1816 or the 2020 whatever
Oh,
the
that's
simple
interesting.
battery.
Yeah, it's a standard battery.
Yeah.
because the
20
tiles were not. You just
2032.
threw the tile away, bought a new tile. It worked out. But
Yeah, but you got to go buy a new tile every time you have.
although
like
I was
that
seeing
a-
some stuff of 5G having enough transmitter power that you could start using it for wireless energy, possibly. supposedly.
Joshua says 2032 battery.
Yeah, it's a C2032. Yeah. So, like, I don't lose. I don't know. Like the
You're
the
just better
scenario-
than us. That's all.
We're not as perfect as you.
I'm not. No, I'm just saying. Like, I have lost my backpack. It was stolen. I have lost my wallet. Yeah, I left it on a plane, and it was returned to me by the airline. Like, it wasn't something that I could have air tagged it. Like, found it because it was in a different state, right? So,
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily. If that state has iPhone users and they have range within your bag, it'll ping that, and it'll end up on your phone
Right.
as it's
how
been
would
found
that
in
have,
this area.
how would that have helped me? Right? It was like the air crew who found it, picked it up and put it in the lost and found. Then the lost and found sent it back to me and shipped it back. Like that all works already, right? So why would I need an air tag to tell me that the lost and found had it? If I knew where I'd lost
If it didn't work, somebody stole your bag, didn't find the air tag in the bag,
At least
you
not
found
right
the
away.
location. Yeah.
So here's the deal with that. I had my backpack stolen back a couple years ago. I knew exactly where it was because my laptops had some stuff on it that called back to my MDM solution and stuff. I knew the IP and house where these things were. I called the police, told them where it was. They didn't do anything. Like they went over to the house. There was no backpack to be found. Like there's only when
That
it's
was the
stolen.
last-
There's only very little you can do. Right? You're
In
not
a
going to
window
show
of
up to
time because they couldn't prove that it was still there, right? Is that why they couldn't do anything?
Well, they couldn't get a warrant to go look in the house, right? Like you have to have a lot more than just us. Anyways,
Just
You have to have more than an
location.
IP address and some geolocation to convince the cops that somebody stole your backpack. And it sounds like that we all really don't like the idea of an AirTag, but look, what the researcher did was cool, right? So instead of the phone opening up the Find My whatever device, right? It opened up his own personal URL. Now, if you couple that with one of those fancy, 0 days that cost $1 million, open up this website and compromise an iPhone, then that could be kind of fun to have a group of people together, and then you just go drop the AirTag and compromise all the phones. Just saying.
Especially because they're most likely going to be opening it with an iPhone. So
Yeah, I mean, it's a targeted attack for sure, but I mean, that's kind of fun what he did. So
wait, so let me roll that back real quick. So he has an AirTag. He opened up the AirTag and added some kind of change to it, where he or she or they and they made it so that when you marked it as lost, it would show up on everyone's phone saying, "Hey, here's a link."
that's what it sounds like. Yeah.
Interesting. Like that can be really targeted. Like
Yeah,
you can
that could
send
be-
that in the mail.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. That would be kind of fun. So
I do think it transfers it over NFC. So I think you have to actively scan the tag, but yes.
Oh, real okay.
Yeah, it's not a pop-up on the phone.
I'm putting this
random
into my
pop-up.
back pocket for the next time I have a physical in the future at some point. I really love the physical tests. They're fun.
Oh, I thought you meant going to the doctor.
Yeah, I know a physical penetration test, but I do have one of those coming up.
Give it to your doctor and roll your doctor. All right, I got another one here. This is...
I
That's
just want
another
to say, if
fun
I
one.
was modifying this though, the first thing you'd do is hook up the chime functionality to a magnesium strip or something, and then you have a automatic self-destruct device. That's about the only modification I can find useful with it. Someone
not
steals your
following. How would that
backpack.
work?
Someone steals your backpack and you don't like it. Just light the magnesium strip.
Oh,
It's like
Jesus.
the virtual die pack.
Yeah.
virtual day.
And
Exactly.
unless it causes damage to them, and then they sue you after they steal your stuff.
Oh boy.
I didn't say it was the smartest idea. I just said it was an idea.
I'm just saying. Like,
All right, we got here's how about one final link to wrap it up. And security features hack a Tesla from a drone. Are we scared of this?
Yeah, so me and Dale were actually talking about this a little bit. It's actually a little more interesting than it initially looked like, but essentially there is a SSID that all the Teslas are programmed to connect to. And then once you do that, once you have them connect to that SSID, you can actually start exploiting the MCU with like a buffer overflow attack. So it's interesting. The drone is mostly for dramatic effect, though.
So Scorpion, the show, is not as bad as we all thought it was. Is that what we're saying? Like, because they pulled an Ethernet cable from a flying airplane from a driving car, right?
I didn't see.
No one watched the show. Oh wow!
No,
I'm showing how old I am at this point, I guess.
So you're on your own with this one. You gotta do some more explanation.
No, but I was thinking that this sounded like an episode of Leverage or something. Though,
yeah,
right?
there you go. Leverage is coming back, by the way. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. I have to rewatch them. I haven't seen them all. I've caught them time and time again, but I'll have to catch that.
So
I have to go make dinner. You all have a nice evening.
Have a good one.
See you
so
later.
if I can attack it from a drone, I can attack it from pretty much anywhere, right? Like it doesn't have to be a drone doing this. I could be next to that car in another car.
Yeah, I mean, or just drop a rogue AP connected to whatever callback you want, and yeah, it doesn't really matter. Anything that can broadcast an SSID, essentially. But
man, so think about one of the things about the about DEF CON is it used to have this contest where you would test to find how far your network connection can have over 802.11. And I think the longest shot between 2 points was something like 5 miles. And so for 802.11, right? So wireless 802.11, and like for it to happen, I think they needed both receiver and sender to both be like highly high powered antennas / receivers. But think about it this way: like, wouldn't it be interesting to have like a WAN or what is it called? A metro WAN, like some like a large antenna pushing out these kinds of attacks, right? You'd have every single Tesla just stop in that area, right? So does Tesla or did anything in here have a solution for this or a backup for this, where instead of doing anything like once the overflow happened, it came to a complete stop, or it had a solution where it would slow down and then come to a complete stop, or have manual takeover or anything like that. Like this, hopefully that this didn't create a scenario where you can like slam on the brakes because of the overflow.
yeah, I mean, I hope so. I didn't specifically see it called out, but I hope so. We were discussing that, like, in theory, you don't want the doors to just automatically start opening while you're driving down the interstate either. Like, so yeah, you'd hope there'd be some sort of checks in place that says, like, hey, these are not ideal conditions for this right now. Something has to happen.
Yeah, and that's actually a really, really great conversation that I'd love to have on this podcast sometime is self-correcting security, right? When you start to, we're getting to the point where policy as code, infrastructure as code is kind of becoming the narrative that's going through the different, verticals inside of cybersecurity. And I think that once we get there, once we're pushing that, we get to a point where we're doing like auto correction and or not like spelling on your phone, because that's horrible, but like auto correcting and auto healing infrastructure. And Amazon kind of already does this, and that's a great model to go off. Google already does this. It's a great model. Netflix already does this with Chaos Monkey. They've been doing it for God knows how long, right? And I think that when we need to get to a point where the cybersecurity pieces of enterprise infrastructure is also self-healing, self-correcting, right? So if a password breach happens, like you have systems that ingest that information and automatically push out to the system, who is the owners of those systems, identify all of the impacted systems, then change the password, then automatically inform the user and have them auto log out, log back in with the new password generated, and then each one of those systems subsequently gets updates and logs say, here's the 7 places where abnormal logons happened, and all of these functionalities, so that at the end of the day, the security people don't have jobs. Like that's the goal, right? Is to get to the point where we all don't have a job anymore, because security is not just solved but like automated. And I'd love to have that conversation.
I mean, I think it's I like the idea, don't get me wrong. I just think that like as soon as an executive gets their password randomly submitted, that whole system's getting shut off as soon as it possibly can be.
Wait, what's it like? Why?
That's a fantastic question, but it's the same reason why if an executive's hey, I want Facebook, sometimes Facebook gets allowed. I'm not saying that it's going to be in your Fortune 100 businesses necessarily, but
so you're saying that
running out of a job soon.
You're saying that if an executive had gotten their password automatically changed and reset because of a breach, that they would be upset at that automation and want it to stop.
They'd want themselves excluded is what would happen.
Yeah, they would want excluded because they're an executive. Like,
it's an inconvenience to their day. That's anything that impacts their day in a way that they perceive as negative. It's not going to matter. I mean, I could tell you, I've seen this over and over again.
So,
well, I mean, I've worked in places where it's a full Windows environment, but the executives get MacBooks because they're executives.
Yep.
It's the same line of logic.
Right. Okay. So what I'm saying is, and I get your point of view. I absolutely understand it because user experience in security sucks. It's trash. Like, it is horrible. And that's why we have a problem. If we created a scenario where we have, coders and user experience people in security doing these kinds of things, I don't think it would be much of an issue. I don't think they would notice. And that's the goal. Like having the password reset where they're currently logged in and have, the app they're logged into crash or just refresh all of a sudden with their new password, and they get a message saying into their, password manager that a password has changed, and they don't care because they just use their fingerprint. Like, that's what we need to get to, where they don't notice the change. And so we don't have
to get it to
ask.
that point. Yeah, then that would be awesome. It's just a lot of work to get to that point.
No, it isn't. It's not a lot of work. It's just you have to have people on your teams and your to like have that vision and go towards that vision, instead of just saying, yeah, we need to exclude the executives because they'll ask for an exclusion anyways. Like, that mindset is and I'm not pointing fingers at you, but like that mindset in general in InfoSec is why we have so many problems, right?
I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No offense taken that way. I agree. I don't think that's part of the solution. I've gotten that request plenty. You can't ask an executive to reboot their computer without them freaking out.
It's a tough road to sled. And I mean, I actually have been in a situation where I've tried to put things in place, and I absolutely had the mindset that, no, I don't care who you are, you're going to do it this way. And, then there's when the reality hits the wall, that's when it's like, okay, well, I don't care what you want. This is how it's going to be. It's like, well, no, we can't do it for you, because then you're an exception. And it just turns into a whole dialogue, honestly, that's also where, when you talk about big companies, that's when the boards of big companies need to just take the mindset that we're going to hold the company accountable. And if we have a problem at a corporate level of security, and it boils down to the CEO or any particular high level exec, then that high level exec is going to be packing their bags and taking a walk, and their golden parachute is gone.
Yeah, I'm saying it shouldn't get to the point where we need martial law to get things in security. We've had that, and everyone hates us. And now, because of all the news, everyone has to deal with us. We need to get to a point where we are coworkers again instead of like the law.
Business partners. It's a partner. That's really what it needs to be. And I totally agree with you. It really needs to be like, it's kind of like, if you think about it, Infosec's kind of going through the stages that IT went through in the late 80s, early 90s, where they really weren't really a business partner. They were more like, we needed to do this and do this now. And now, IT is kind of getting to the point where they're more of a business partner, but now you have information security, which is kind of in the situation that IT was originally. It's like, yeah, we want it to be secure, but we can't do that because that interrupts with the business. So we have to kind of really begin to, to lay the tracks and, do the legwork and build those relationships.
Yeah. I just think we need to get out of the mindset that we need to force things down people's throats. If we do our jobs better, if we point back at ourselves and say, we need to find better solutions, we have to stop accepting BS from vendors because, because they're the only ones out there. We need to, expect features from vendors and we need to do better to make things user friendly and accessible instead of I coded this thing last night, it's the coolest thing since sliced bread and it works for me kind of bullshit. Like that's what we need to do. We need to point back at ourselves.
Absolutely.
That's where kind of the trick lies, is that no one's willing to take that stance against the vendors yet and say, hey, I'm not buying your product because you don't have X, Y, Z in it. So until we have enough people who are not buying the products, the vendors are just going to keep shelling out the same stuff that they're doing right now.
I'll tell you one thing. If a vendor comes at me and doesn't have 2FA capabilities, like that's instant no, right? Like, and that's security vendors. And the problem is a lot of security vendors don't have 2FA yet. Like, and because they're not required to. And it like that just, I don't know. Anyways,
I agree with you on that. As a security vendor, security should be forefront. That's the whole security component of your business model, right? I mean, for a long time, Splunk, like the resource for everyone's data, right? Like that logging platform everyone used didn't have 2FA. So me as a red teamer, I would go after their Splunk instance and just search for password equals and like find passwords just strewn about everywhere. And so like the fact that we as anyways, this is a long rant. I'm going to let this go. This is way over time.
It's time to wrap this up. We had a show. We got an hour-long show. It's been great. If you want more pipeline down your pipe, check out tomorrow's webcast.
That's
down your
really
news
gross.
pipe. Down your news pipe. I'd missed a word. Sorry. More. Never mind. I'm going to move on.
Just cut to the end.
We're going to get to the end now. Here's the video.
Bye.